So Jerry, you should probably talk about how you came about a bear.
Yeah, I was driving back from picking up that new camera, and a couple kilometers up on the highway I could see something black, and I was like, is it an Animal Crossing? And I did over a little hill and I got closer. I think somebody's tire blew out. And I got over a little hill and I got closer, and I was like, it's a bear! No, it's a tire. No, it's a bear! And I got closer and closer, and then I could see the ear shape. So it looked kind of long and narrow with the ear sticking up, and I drove past. I was like, I can't believe it's a bear. So I did a UE, and I got a little shot on my cell phone camera and threw it in the back of the car.
So to be clear, it's roadkill.
Oh yeah.
I don't think he said that, because bear's not open right now.
So, oh yeah, no. No, it was hit on the road. You can see there's a couple skid marks on it. And
Small bear?
yeah, like 100 and something maybe. Good.
The Wilderness Living Challenge in August with all the hacks. Everything's going our way except for my camera.
Yeah.
Alright, I'll give you a hand.
That is a shame.
It's a big shame.
Okay.
Run.
Hold on.
Yep.
I better purchase.
Go. Alright, so starting off with this roadkill bear, I'm going to basically do it the same as a deer, except often when I get a deer it's lying on the ground. So this bear we hung, which is also nice because it's not too heavy. So I'll start by cutting around the top legs and doing an incision down to the groin, and then I'll peel the skin back from there and down the belly, around the front arms, and then finally down to the head.
What kind of knife are you using?
Same knife that you're usually using. So I brought my Groman Trout and Bird. This is made in Nova Scotia, Canada. They make classic bush and camping knives, plus they have a cutlery line.
Are we Canadian?
So Canadian.
No, don't say it jokey. We are Canadian.
Oh yeah.
We're filming this in Northern Ontario.
Yep.
This is
For sure.
This is as Canadian as it gets.
I would say so. Yeah. We don't have any Tim Hortons or beer with us, but it's pretty Canadian. So I gotta watch, I almost cut that back tendon, which is all that's holding this bear up. So I want to be careful with that. This is going to be tricky because the legs aren't spread as much as I would have liked, but we're going to do an incision up to the edge here from the groin. We'll just pause for a second and maybe you can help me move that leg.
Yeah, for sure.
Try not to get too much hair on the meat. It looks pretty lean so far, eh? I think that most of the fat would be elsewhere on the bear, but
Yeah, well, it's not a winter bear either. I mean,
no.
it's a young bear.
Yeah.
It's not going to have a whole lot of fat. It will have some fat, most likely.
Yeah. Again, just trying to keep the hair off the meat by folding the skin back as I go. I was giving some thought to saving this hide, but it's got so many skid marks from the road. It's not really worth doing a super clean job on the hide because it's not worth saving. But I do want to be really tidy around the meat and keep as much hair off as I can. It makes me crazy when you see somebody's animal and it's covered with all stray hairs. So the legs are off and peeled. I just worked around the tail here. So now it's just really a matter of pulling down and cutting any of that connective tissue and working all the hide down to the shoulders and then back along the arms. I'll cut them off at the wrists, go further, and then cut it around at the head. So what I did is I cut down the middle to the sternum and then I cut a line along the inside of the arm. And so again, I'm still working at peeling this all back, and I'll cut it at the wrist. I'll cut along the other arm, work all that back, cut it off at the wrist. And you can see here the collision damage. Like, I think we're seeing lungs through the ribs here, and there's all kinds of hemorrhaging. So I'm almost done the arms. My next step will be to peel it back down around the head.
So just slit along the top.
Cut along and then just peel them back.
Yeah,
and you can see
around the wrist too.
I've been really careful so there's not much hair stuck to the hide. There's a few here and there, but it can misflavor. It can disflavor. What do you say?
Disflavor. Off flavor.
It'll give the meat an off flavor, right? If you like, hair is not clean, especially on a bear. It's running around the woods and doing whatever. So if it touches the meat, it's just a chance of bacterial transfer. So
what are we doing with this bear?
we're going to hang quarters over our fire. We're going to smoke it overnight to preserve it. And then I think just because of the quantity of meat we have, we're either going to invite out 15 people for a feast, or we're going to take it where we can do a cut and wrap and freeze. Okay, so starting at the top, peeling all the way down, keeping the flesh really clean, the meat. And so now that I'm past the two front legs, I'm right down almost at the chin at the front, and at the back I'm going to go until I can feel the base of the skull. So I know that all the neck has been peeled and exposed, and then an axe chop to separate the head from the body. This is interesting here. You can see how much blood is in these two veins under the neck and how close they are to the skin. so you can see on the hide too. It's kind of tricky to keep all the meat on the carcass unless you're being really careful. Almost always some of it comes off on the hide, so you can go back afterwards and peel all those little pieces off, or you can spend more time when you're skinning and keep more of them on the carcass. It's just how you approach it. Decided we're going to skin the head right down to the nose there, and we'll roast it on the fire, and then afterwards hopefully we'll have a good skull, or maybe we'll make like a soup by boiling it, although we have tons of other food to eat, but we'll boil it regardless, so we have a nice skull after, and maybe we'll take off the cheeks and smoke those with that trout. So the base of the skull is right there. So everything from here to here is like a neck roast or good for a stew. Cut off here, we'll take the cheeks off to smoke them. Boil the head, we'll take the tongue out, we'll roast the tongue. So I'm just gonna keep working my way back. So this animal didn't bleed out when it died, and you can see this long, one of these veins coming down the neck. It comes out right by the, right near to the eye, right into the jaw, all probably around the nose and everything. It feeds all that area, and there's quite a bit of blood draining out of that. I'm just working around the lips and the nose there, and there's a dehydrated bear. Oops. Well, cut through the bone.
Almost gone.
There it is. So this is the underside of the head. This is the one jaw here, and I'm cutting along beside it. The other jaw on the other side. So both sides we're cutting up to the front, and then you should be able to get in there if you cut all the right pieces that are holding it in place. You can remove the tongue through the bottom of the jaw. Watch that you don't dull your knife on the teeth. This is the same way that I would take out a deer tongue. So there's the tongue. You want to find where it is attached at the back. So the tongue is fairly large, and it's a really good meat. And then detach it. Right back here there's a little bony protuberance at the base of the, I don't know what it's called. So you cut it off by the thingamabob, and then we can cook this. First we'll scald it and wash it.
Sure.
So all this piece around behind the ear, I'm also going to try to take off. So these are all of what people call the sweetbreads. They're like a glandular organ around by the cheeks. We can fry those up. There were some on one of the beavers too that we cooked. So I'll do the same thing on the other side, and there'll be the tongue in these two pieces, and then we'll just boil the head as a head, and we'll cook these other pieces separately. Side number 2. I'm just cutting into the neck so I can loosen the esophagus, so you can see it here. It's a white tube. Looks like something you'd get in the plumbing department. Sorry, that's probably not very clear. So you loosen it up as far up as you can go, and then hopefully it pulls up through the inside. Such a smaller cavity than a deer. And you always watch for rib fragments. If there's a broken rib in there, it'll be like a pointy sliver that'll get you. So I'm going to pull the windpipe out the bottom. Blood clots coming out the bottom. Let that come out. There's the heart. I think the heart ruptured too. Look at that.
Yep.
Ruptured on impact.
Looks done.
So we won't eat that, because it's ruptured like that liver. It might not really be that bad. It looks like it ruptured there too. I don't think that's from my knife.
It's probably
my knife
fine.
would leave a clean cut. That's a.
It's probably fine to eat.
It might be.
I mean, the guts aren't. If the guts were damaged, then maybe you wouldn't want to eat it. But
Yeah, the guts weren't damaged, but I don't know. That one's got some pretty big clots on it from where it got hit.
yeah, nice. So we're gonna take the quarters off and the back straps off.
Yeah. So it's just like quartering a deer.
And we're gonna do our part as scavengers.
Yeah.
If not, another animal would eat it.
Let's put this on this tree for now. So the shoulder has no joint attachment. It's all muscle attachment. So what you do is you come in behind the elbow. There's maybe different angles that you could cut this at, but I'm gonna go in here and follow the rib cage along the backbone up the neck, and you can see the shoulder blade here. It's just attached by a lot of connective tissue in there. So we shake hands with the bear and cut through the connective tissue all the way to the base or the top of the neck where the skull would have been, and you have front shoulder. Back straps are along on either side of the spine, so I'm gonna find the spine along it. Oops, moving around a bit. Back here. All the way to, this is basically part of the hind quarter, so I'll cut that far because we're going to cut in here after. Down the spine to the neck. Where'd that spine go? So now you've basically separated it from the spine. Coming off of the spine, you have all the ribs lying along here, and there's that chunk of meat. So what I'm going to do at this top quarter is I cut away from the body at that point, and then I'm going to go down the bear, following the ribs. The other thing you can do with the backstrap tenderloins is you can fillet them off of this big piece of backstrap sinew. So people traditionally use that as a thread or for a backing on bows. You can see it's like silvery white or bluish white here. So it's a really good craft material. There's most of a poorly removed backstrap tenderloin, I think. Not my best job. Same thing on the other. Okay, the two back straps are off, and then I always find this the trickier part, but I like to take the whole hip off by finding the hip joint, which is a ball and socket joint. So I'm cutting the back quarter away from some of this side meat. There's a bit of organ fat there. And then you have to feel around in there like a massage therapist. Find the hip bone. I think I hit it. I can hear the cartilage. So I felt around. There it is. You see the ball shape. And all that's holding that in place, or what's mostly holding in place, is a bit of tissue around the joint. So that's it there. So I'll cut off. Even with that joint, there'll be a roast in this chunk, and then there'll be a whole quarter above it. There's the socket. This creamy colored stuff is the tendon and the ligament around that holds the joint together. So if you're careful, without cutting the bone, you can cut the tissue, and you can take that whole back quarter off without having to cut through a bone, like so. So just to finish up this side, I'm going to take out some of these meaty bits around the hip joint. You on a bigger bear, these would be quite a bit bigger. This would be a whole, I don't know how many pounds of roast here. So I'm just following the shape of the hip, and I'm taking it off as a single piece. It's going to be very rich. You can see it's all mottled with fat and little connective pieces. So there's the hip roast. And a piece of meat. Okay, we've got one hip off, one hip on, or one quarter, back quarter off and one on, and we are going to remove the inside tenderloins. So when we look inside the cavity, this is where I took off the one leg. This is where the other leg is still attached. This is the center line of the bear, and on either side of the center line on the inside we have tenderloin. So these are the inside tenderloins. The ones we took off on the back are the back strap tenderloins. And what I'm going to do with these is, you can do this with a knife, or you can carefully get your finger and thumb underneath them, and you can basically peel them out off of the spine. So I'm just getting my thumb behind it. I'm going to not cut my thumb, but I'm going to use it as a guide to cut the connective piece. And going to work that tenderloin free. Maybe I'm going to get in there with a knife a little bit for that connective tissue. It's a long piece of connection. Right down to the end, and that would be one inside tenderloin. I'll take off this piece of tissue here and maybe cut it into little cutlets, fry them up. The chest meat is really thick on the bear, so I'm going to carve this off. Would you call that the brisket, Woodbeard? Or is the brisket the neck?
Yeah,
it was kind of the chesty part.
Yeah, no, I think the brisket's more the neck, the necky chesty.
Okay.
Not quite the chesty.
So I'm just following the ribs here towards the neck.
I think the brisket is like the neck. What you're calling the neck.
Okay.
The neck meat would be the brisket.
So that's a big chunk of meat. We'll take off this connective tissue and tidy it up a little bit. So I'm just following the ribs again. This one's got some of that clot damage because it's the impact side. So you can see it's clotted up a little bit. We might be able to scrape that off of the meat. Okay, I want to take the neck roast off. So now I'm just cutting through the neck muscle until I get to the bone, and then I'll give it a chop with the axe. right in about there.
Yep.
Full. So I'm just following the edge of the hip bone, and I'm looking for, it's nice that once you've done the first one, it's a lot easier to find the hip bone because it's on the other side from where the first one was. Get it in there. Cut that tissue around the ball. So when I finish cutting this piece, of course the whole spine is going to fall away from the top quarter. Just having trouble getting the knife in there for that one last cut. There it is. All right. I might have to build a bigger tripod.
So how does this preserve meat? What's the effect, the agent?
Well, it's going to keep the flies off, and it's drying, right? So bacteria typically can't live in a dry environment. So smoking, it'll keep the flies off, but also as the meat dries out, it'll slower prevent bacteria, at least long enough for us to get to a location where we can cut and wrap to freeze.
It's kind of smoky in here.
Yeah,
We got smoke from the left,
smoke from the right,
smoke to the right. Oh,
and it's gonna get smokier.
yep. We forgot the bear pot that we're actually going to eat. You want to pick a spice over there?
Sure. Cajun.
Cajun, sure.
Okay.
So this is
We're
your
on the
bear.
last piece here.
This is your bear, and we added some Cajun spice. We're not showing you the label, but I'm sure you can identify it. It's a very common kind of brand. There.
A delicious kind of brand.
And if they sponsor us, we'll mention them all the time. Because
Yeah.
I put this on everything.
Yeah.
And then we some seasoned. Is it seasoning salt or seasoned salt? Seasoning. I always call it seasoned.
Yeah, me too the whole time.
It says seasoning.
Alright.
I get confused. Anyway, that's it. And you're gonna add a little bit of water in there.
Done.
It'd be nice if we could add some fat in there.
It's pretty fatty meat.
Is it fatty?
I think it'll be. Yeah.
Are you gonna add water to it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll simmer it like a stew, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Very good.